everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Silicon Dreams with Yatt. Yat Siu needs no introduction, and he is the guy behind Animoca Brands, the guy who has led many other gaming startups to success, especially in the Web3 world. And as you guys know, we have an amazing portfolio at Animoca Brands, including one of the most famous games originally created by Pixel, The Sandbox, which, especially in the metaverse time, took the world by storm. Yeah, it's a pleasure having you here on our show today.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
And thank you for finding the time to chat with us. So without further ado, I would love to ask you we are at Token 2049. Dubai is an amazing ground for Web3 entrepreneurs, investors, and gamers, of course. What has been your experience at Token 2049? Could you also summarize some of the key updates coming from Animoca Brands?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I think the energy at Token 2049 was great. I guess, there's a little bit of a joke one could say about the fact that, Dubai has been awash in liquidity. But either way, basically, I think the energy is electric. I think people are really, really sort of excited. I think, we're right here actually at our portfolio day, and everyone's excited and meeting people and so on. And, at Animoca, we've done, of the 450 investments or so, we've done over 150 in games, right? And you had mentioned the Sandbox, of course, but other ones, for instance, are like Pixels most recently, and of course Axie Infinity, as in Sky Mavis, and a whole bunch of other game studios that really are sort of, I would say, shaking up the market and showing what's possible in Web3. So that's been really exciting to see.
Absolutely. Even folks, if you haven't checked out these games, go and check them out. You might have actually heard about Years of Mavis. Recently, they have taken the entire App Store by storm. One of the really good successes coming out of Web3, because personally, as a builder building a gaming platform on Web3, even I'm very invested in trying to see where we see those major wins coming in. So, yeah, a quick question for you. When do you think will Web3 get its Minesweeper, Roblox, or Fortnite moment? And I'm guessing it's going to come out of Animoca, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think one of the ways that we think, by the way, one of the reasons what we think about the sort of Web3 ethos is that we believe in this thing called the shared network, and Animoca Brands invests in the ethos of a shared network, meaning that we are very broadly invested in the space because we believe that if one company does really well, it will lift the entire ecosystem up. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's because when you build on chain, the network effects are shared. Yeah. Versus when you're building in Web2, Fortnite can be very successful. Nobody else cares about Fortnite, for instance, right? The network effects do not basically move from one place to place. The liquidity is not shared across the ecosystem. Yes. So I think that's one thing. So even if we end up not having invested in the biggest game that ends up launching, we'll still benefit because the rest of the ecosystem will grow as a result. That's how at least we sort of forms part of our investment thesis and our growth strategy. But I think the other thing also is that when to speak of the moment, one of the challenges that we found in Web3 is that to become a Web3 gamer, you actually need to have some kind of financial literacy, right? To be actually, a Web3 person has more of an investing mindset. It's not to say that he's an investor, but it's to say that he looks at it from the lens of an investment. And whereas a gamer doesn't necessarily think of it as investment, he looks at it as entertainment.
Fun, right? Entertainment.
And so the two, and by the way, I also believe that people generally have an investing mindset. It's just they're not applying it for the games they play because they think of it as fun entertainment. But at the end of the day, they actually are investing. When you're spending hours and hours in a game,
your feelings, your time,
your emotions, your connections, your social connections, and your status, right? But so you might start off thinking it's fun, but then actually you walk out having made a deep investment, if not in money, then in time, right? And basically in Web3, you kind of shortcut that, and you recognize that when you invest in a game, be it time or money, you're actually making an investment, which I think is true, because I think everything in life that we do, even the entertainment, is an investment. When we do sports, it's not just because we want to necessarily physically sort of feel better. We're actually making an investment in our own fitness or in our own health, for instance.
Yes.
Right? Even when you think about relationships, I feel also the fact that relationships are an investment, maybe your biggest investment in life, right? So we're attuned to actually invest in one form or the other. I think Web3 simply elucidates that. So the challenge now we have is how do we get people from Web2 gaming to Web3 to understand that actually life is a personal investment in your time and in your value, and therefore playing a Web3 game is actually much more valuable and much more rewarding than just simply basically basically playing a Web2 game. And I think the Web3 users have personified that and created these value network effects, whereas the Web2 users still need to be educated. And I think this comes with financial literacy. One of the learnings is how do we bring people from Web 2 to Web 3 is actually making the financial literacy. We don't think it's about having, an easier wallet, for instance. We don't think it's about basically abstracting. You can make it a little easier, but if you abstract too much, then you don't even know why you're here.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel there are prejudices, of course, at play because the crypto industry by itself has been volatile, and people look at Web3 gaming and they associate that closely also with just the traditional
Right,
industry.
but I do go back to the principle of financial literacy,
Right.
because if you're financially literate, you understand we exist in a capitalist framework. And if you
Absolutely.
understand that we exist in a capitalist framework, then you appreciate that actually is volatile. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So capitalism is not stable and was never meant to be stable because it's a proxy for change.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason why we can have Tesla or the reasons why companies collapse is because they're indicators of whether there's relevancy to the market. Right. So the capital markets tell you something about the state of your business, whether it's good or bad, whether it's worth pursuing or not, for instance. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's actually a big information source that way. But I think what's happening is that when you're in the world today, you think it's stable because you think that there's a sort of general employment index, for instance, and you think that the world has a certain fixed inflation rate or some rate, and so you think it's stable when in fact it's anything but, right? If you were to measure the number of times people lose their jobs every day and gain their jobs every day, then you actually come to realize actually how volatile the ecosystem really is. And so with Web3, you just get to see it every day, how the world actually operates, right?
And nothing is as transparent as Web3 because if you know where to find the information, it's all there.
Yes.
Whereas in the traditional Web2 world, you have to go through hoops and barriers to even get access to that information.
That's right. Yes.
And monetization is not something that was created just by Web3, especially in gaming. If you look at Twitch, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, the entire premise was to provide a platform for gamers to stream while they were gaming so they could make money from it.
Correct. But I think one of the challenges for whether it's Twitch or Twitter or any of these platforms is that while you can monetize them, the network effects are still embedded within their own network. So they're limited. So you can make money, but you don't make as much money as in Web3 because network effects are shared and they cross and they bridge across. And those who understand that actually are able to manage them better. And I think one of the other things that we're also one of the, things that we want to help make people understand is, what is a token, right? A token isn't just a currency. To us, it's basically the representation of the network effects that you're building, right? And they embed with them both the utility and the financial networks, basically all in one, right? And that I think is again a new concept, which you can do with tokens, but you can't really do that in the physical world, right? Because then these network effects actually they represent social relations and social networks, but really in a way where you can embody both the utility and the finance system in one system. We think, for instance, that the world currently is bifurcated by multiple social networks that don't properly talk to each other. So,
they don't talk to each other.
They don't talk to each other. For instance, when you look at Instagram or Facebook or that kind of stuff, they're social networks, but they basically are connecting you on the utility side. But the finance system is really hidden inside the platforms, which they sort of create all the value. We don't see what that is. The other social network we think is money. We think money is probably the biggest social network in the sense that it allows people to transact with each other, not knowing who they are. Right? I can go walk into the store. I mean, just think about it. You can walk into a store of a stranger, and through the exchange of money, you have created a transactional relationship that basically begins the beginning of a social relationship. But that's purely financial in nature. So we have two sort of social relation networks that don't talk to each other. And with tokens and blockchain, you actually merge the two. And you create a system where basically the social relations become amplified and more powerful because you're basically combining two network effects into one. And I think people who design tokens and think about their token ecosystems and appreciate that, generally you'll find more success because they understand that network effects is what you're trying to build.
Absolutely. And one of the core tenets of Web3 is the sense of community, belonging, and growing together.
And community and belonging is a network effect.
That is a network effect. Well, finally, what I would love to ask you, Yatt, is give us some of the major headlines that we should be looking forward to this year and in fact, even coming out of Token 2049.
I think generally speaking, I think that I think we'll see more Bitcoin spot ETFs come out. Hong Kong just recently announced their Bitcoin spot ETF. I guess it was sort of a conditional approval, and Ethereum spot ETF. So basically,
I'm
you'll
looking
see
forward
a
to
whole
that.
bunch of new sort of launch products that will bring more capital into the market and grow that. But of course, I'm expecting, whether it's London or Singapore or Tokyo or other places, to eventually launch ETFs as well. So that will basically create a sort of more of a, I guess, financial base for the growth of the ecosystem.
Also creates more accessibility for
Correct.
people to invest in Bitcoin,
Correct,
ETFs.
exactly. Which then basically will create a general rise in the Web3 market, which basically is good for the ecosystem as a whole.
Yes.
So I think you see a lot more activity in Web3 gaming and so on. Well, we also, a few days ago, just announced our financials. And I think us announcing the financials was really to show people that it's not just the price of Bitcoin and tokens that are up, but that businesses are doing well too. And we most recently reported $290 million of cash in the balance sheet, plus another roughly $2.4 billion in off and on balance sheet tokens that are fairly liquid, actually very liquid. So I think that actually, again, and we're not the only businesses in Web3 that is, performing or outperforming. So I think in that sense, it's also to show the market that businesses in the space are doing well, and hopefully it inspires more companies out there, even who are not in Web3, to say, oh, we should look at Web2, we should look at Web3 from Web2, because that's actually the growth opportunity. If you're a gaming studio, you can't make money on the App Store. You can't really properly make money in Steam. Yeah, it's a 1 in a million chance, but most of them basically don't get there. But in Web3, you've kind of reminds me a little bit of the early days of mobile gaming, right? If you made a mobile game somewhere between 2011 to 2013, 14, you had all the opportunity because the market was still trying to find itself and shape itself. And I think I encourage everyone who's at least thinking in gaming, actually beyond gaming, but especially in gaming, to consider the Web3 market. And if you're interested in making a Web3 product, then you can go talk to Animoca Brands, and we might have a check for you too.
Absolutely. Animoca has led investments in some of the best Web3 gaming companies that are out there. The one last question that I want to ask you is, how do you see AI influencing the growth of Web3 gaming?
I think AI is going to supercharge Web3 in an amazing way. First of all, I mean, there's many dimensions, but let me just give you two illustrations. First, I think digital provenance, though how does an AI that uses our data or our content actually share value? It's through blockchain. Right? There's no DRM system in the world that can basically account for, let's call it, 1 million content pieces around the world to be distributed to 1 million wallets, right?
Right.
But on blockchain you can do that. In
Absolutely.
the same way that every token holder essentially can become sort of an agent and an owner basically of an AI system, right? You can really decentralize AI as well and share the benefits around that. But the other thing that I'm really excited about is what it will do for autonomous agents. Because at the end of the day, autonomous agents will run our life. I believe, for instance, that we're going to have lots of autonomous agents doing stuff for us, whether it's trading, whether it's buying, whether it's giving suggestions and tips.
I can't wait to get
Right.
my EA,
Yes.
who is an autonomous agent.
Yeah, well, and exactly. And I think we won't have, like, as I said, we won't have one, we'll have multiple
Yes.
that might be designed with specific biases in mind, because that's what we are. As humans, we have certain preferences.
We have biases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, they're going to be transacting with other AIs. And guess what other AIs are going to be transacting with? What currency are going to use? Crypto.
Yeah.
Because a digitally sort of native, basically, sort of system like AI is going to want to transact with a digital native construct, like basically tokens, crypto in Web3. And again, they're going to do it in a decentralized fashion because they're not going to be trading, basically using fiat. They're not going to be having a PayPal account, or they're going to have a bank account because they can't do KYC. Right? So basically, I think of AI to make them truly autonomous and scale, they're going to actually use crypto. And that means I think the velocity of the liquidity that will take place because of AI agents is going to basically, again, accelerate and grow the space tremendously.
Thank you, Yatt. The one final question that I do have for you, and this is a call to action for the people listening in. You did tell them that, hey, if anyone is building, they can reach out to Animoca, and if it's a good game, Animoca might write a check. What is the best way to get in touch with Animoca?
So it depends. We have multiple pools of capital, but I think the two general pools of capital to look at is Animoca Ventures. So you can go to the website and basically contact them, or you basically contact the teams in Dubai, an event. For instance, they're all here right now. Or you can also try to contact Animoca itself. Basically, we're on Twitter. Basically, I try to help out if you send me an email or a message, but I'm quite busy. So generally speaking, you just approach them directly on your products and services. But again, nothing beats human connection. Animoca is present in almost every event in one form or the other. Come reach out to us. Don't be shy. Find us in places. DM us. I'll say one more thing. In any kind of entrepreneurial business, it doesn't have to be Web3. Hustle is important, right? You need to show that you're driven, right? And so if someone doesn't answer you, if we forget to reply to you, if we somehow accidentally ignore you, those are not indications at all that we think your product is bad necessarily. It's just the fact that we don't have time. We don't have your attention because we've got many other things to do. Don't give up. Keep going. And I think that is a perseverance aspect of an entrepreneur. Don't be disheartened, keep going. And by the way, I think this is true not just for us, but for any other person that you're seeking capital for. Just keep going and believing in what you do and believing in yourself.
Thank you, Yatt. That was an amazing message for all the entrepreneurs, hustlers out there. Be perseverant, and your perseverance will pay off. Thanks again for joining us
My
today,
pleasure.
Yatt.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.